Hello and welcome to episode 177 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're a source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular guys drinking some irregular beers and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular the online client MTG Arena.
That is right, and this is an episode we haven't had in quite a long time, but we are having our happy hour for Foundations, the Magic set that came out in November. So our happy hours are just a time where we get to look back on the set and think about all the happy things that were there. Because oftentimes there's many things to critique, but we're trying not to do that today. We're talking about happy things. But first, each week we bring a beer, we drink it, we rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So with that, Jeff, what's on tap?
All right. Well, maybe you should introduce this one, but I'll give a short intro here. This is Bickford Brewing Company. This is their pilot batch series. None More Black is the name of the beer, and it's a black lager clocking in at 5%. Zach, what does any of that mean?
It means it's going to hopefully be a really tasty beer. But this is a newer brewery in Toronto, established in 2023. I heard about it. A friend of mine works there, and it's on the west end of Toronto, actually pretty close to my apartment. So I went up there, grabbed a bunch of beers that they had, and we're going to do them on the show for the next few weeks or so. Or until we run out, basically. And yeah, excited to try this. I have not had any of their beer yet, so we shall see. I did that. Plus, I was also checking out the space because my friend who works there, the owner, had mentioned wanting to do magic nights, and so we've been talking about doing like a vintage proxy cube. And I had to see what the table situation was, and it
That's
looks
pretty cool.
looks doable. So we
Yeah.
will see if that gets off the ground. But in the meantime, let's drink some beer. Let's
Let's
test
do
this
it.
out. All right, here we go.
Three, two, one.
All right, we have some magic news. So this one's actually pretty fun, Jeff. I have been enjoying this little rumor that's been running around the internet.
Yeah, I
Um,
heard it from you, so
Yeah. So I posted this in our Discord, but I did find it on Blue Sky. Some different people were speculating, but I think officially the person who truly feels like they found it, or at least put a video out, was Amazonian, Amy the Amazonian,
hey.
the Magic Twitch streamer. And she was saying, in conjunction with, do you know MTG Daily Deals? It was a Twitter account. I think they also have moved over to Blue Sky, like a bunch of people have. But anyway, they just post the daily deals that are in the Magic Arena store. And at the beginning of the year, the daily deals started out kind of being themed around stuff. Now they're often themed around things, usually holidays or things like on Thanksgiving. There's some like jokey Thanksgiving sleeves and things like that, and same for Halloween and blah 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 blah. Well, at the beginning of the year, on the first, it was just all vehicles. And people were like, okay, that's cool, sure, a bunch of vehicles. And then on the second day, it was all different dragons. Well, now people started thinking like, okay, well, vehicles and dragons. Vehicles is Aetherdrift. That's a set that's coming out this year. Dragons are Tarkir, Dragonstorm. Okay, that makes sense. The next one that came out was themed around Final Fantasy. There's a bunch of crystals. Apparently, crystals are very important in Final Fantasy. I didn't really know that, but I have been told by the internet that that is true. So, okay, that's 3 for 3. It looks like we're doing this. Like they're just going to go through all the sets that we know about in 2025. Because remember, we know that there's 6 sets that are coming out, but the sixth one has not been announced. We know it's Universes Beyond, but we don't know what the IP is.
Right.
On the fourth day, it was a bunch of cards with the word star in it, which, of course, Edge of Eternities is our magic themed set that is like space themed. And then on the fifth day, it was a bunch of spiders for Spider-Man. All these make sense. They all went in order. It seems very obvious that they're trying to do this.
Yeah,
On the sixth,
that's too many coincidences
too
to be
many
an accident.
coincidences,
Yeah.
right? On the sixth day, this is the day everybody started actually really looking at it and then going back and realizing they
Mhm.
had 6 different cards. They had like a card with the word fire in the name, earth, air, water. Those were all in the names. And then two cards with the name or the word bender in it. And so everyone's speculating that this is going to be Avatar The Last Airbender will be the final Universes Beyond set for 2025. And I think it makes sense. Like the way that, as you've watched these arena daily deals over the years, this is the kind of jokes that they make with the names. They do this quite often. And this feels like very much so. Like this is I think this is,
I guess
this is
Avatar is
happening.
about the elements.
Yeah. Do you know Avatar The Last Airbender?
I know of it. I've never seen it or know it. I don't know anything about it. I could like picture the main character.
Aang, yeah, with the so basically it's a world where there's all these different tribes and they all have different bending powers. So either you could be an earthbender and move the ground, or you have a firebender and you shoot fire, or you're a waterbender and you can manipulate water, or
Ah, there's
same with
only
air.
one airbender that remains.
Exactly. In the first episode, they like find the airbender and they haven't had one in like thousands of years or something.
I see.
And he's supposed to master all the elements and become the one who will reunite all the regions together because they're all in constant war, basically. Anyway, pretty cool show. I actually did enjoy watching that, and I haven't seen the whole thing. I've only seen little snippets and stuff. But this one, okay, I could be all right with this. I think we'll see. But it does feel magic-y because there's already like factions, which
Right.
obviously we're very used to factions like this. So, yeah, would also be interesting because the magic colors. I don't want this to be all about Avatar: The Last Airbender, but the magic colors don't always necessarily represent specifically. Like obviously, red is fire, but also it happens to be like anger and aggression or like passion.
Yeah.
And so seeing Avatar The Last Airbender characters that are firebenders but don't happen to be red because they're a lot more about intelligence or like working on yourself or discipline. They're much more like white focused would be really interesting to see. So
Mm.
I wonder I'm pretty sure that this is the set. And so I'm actually kind of interested and excited to see what this is. So first
Neat.
time Universes Beyond, I've been like, oh, okay, I could be down for this. So
Yeah, let's see. I mean, it seems like it's all but confirmed at this point. Like sometimes
mhm.
I find the community goes a little too deep on stuff and like tries to infer things where stuff doesn't really exist. But
Mhm.
here it's like that seems pretty clear that they outlined the next five sets. They have explicitly not told us what the last one is and that it's universes beyond. And
Mhm.
then like elements plus the word bender like appearing
It's
on the
so
sixth.
bizarre, but also very specific.
It just kind of has to be that, right?
It
Like,
kind of does.
yeah.
Unless this is just a huge troll and they're just
Yeah. It could be a troll, right? Like that, but I think the fact that it's like coincidence or you're reading too much into it is off the table at this point. Like that
mhm.
it's just too specific.
Yeah, there's definitely intent behind it, whether it's to like have a fun Easter egg for people who noticed and then we get to have advanced information, or it's somebody just being like we tricked you, that
Yeah.
it's
And the
but usually
community
they
is
wait for April Fools or whatever, but I
the
don't know.
community is like pretty good at this. I remember
Hmm.
when Eldritch Moon was being announced or whatever, they didn't show you the set symbol. And
Hmm.
it's like within seconds, people were like, that's because the set symbol is probably Emrakul, which we would notice right away. So Emrakul's in this set. And I was like, what? That feels like a pretty big jump from like not wanting to show the set symbol. But then sure enough, they were all right. And I was like, okay, well, you guys are very good at this, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that it also kind of made sense. I guess you had Ulamog and Kozilek in the last two sets, and then
Yeah, so
Shadows.
Emrakul's coming at some point. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Emrakul must be what's causing all the weirdness and shadows. And like,
Hmm.
I was like, okay, it seems like a big conclusion from the set symbol, but people were like sure of it, and
Right?
they were right.
Yeah. So we got more of that big brain power for this. But anyway, uh, tell us what you think about Avatar: The Last Airbender being a Magic the Gathering set. Could be cool. Anyway, Jeff, let's get on our main topic and actually get on the magic train, I guess. I don't
I
know.
love how magic themed set is becoming a legitimate thing. You just
It,
used it, and like I
yeah,
was about to laugh at you or correct you, and I'm like, no, he's just right though. That's the magic
that
themed set that's coming
it's
out.
like it's just like the new thing that's going to happen this year.
It only
Um,
happens like once or twice a year, and
yeah, basically. Anyway, we get to talk about the most magic theme set today, Foundations.
love it.
Hooray!
Yeah.
Um, so let's just get right into this thing. Big picture stuff. This set. How do we think about it? Well, like, was this like a hit? Was it home run, slam dunk? Like, what are we thinking?
Yeah, for me it was a slam dunk, delivered exactly what it was meant to. Um, it gave you like staples that you would expect to be in a core or foundational set for players of like any tenure. So like really old school players. There are some like cards in there for them, like Sarah Angel and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um, then you go like middle term or like longer term, I guess, like Land War Elves, and obviously, it's an absolute classic that had to be in there. And then I was noticing like there's even some cards like what's a good example? Like it's not in the main set, I guess, but a Johnny's Pride Mate shows up here, right? And it's like
yeah. No, well,
that's
that's in the main
something.
set.
Oh, it is in the
So
main set. Okay, I
yeah,
can
yeah,
never
yeah.
remember what was where. That was my one criticism, I think, is like
That is, I will agree that that is a criticism definitely for the set where on Arena it'll be like we've only collected like 50% of the set, but you're like, but I draft this thing all the time. What are you talking about? And you're
yeah,
like, oh, there's a bunch of cards that are not in the draft set. Um, but
yeah.
yes, a Johnny's Primate was in the main draft set, which I think is
Oh,
great. I think
okay.
that's definitely a fun card to be able to like you play against this every once in a while, and it's like it's like what's the word like new players love cards like this, and so making
Yeah,
sure that we have cards like that in the Magic theme set is obviously very important. And is also just a fun synergy. Like it gets your mind moving as a new player. At the like just a simple bear that gets bigger when you gain life. Those are all things you want to do.
yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, right? Like this card is a huge part of the experience for people who joined in the arena era. Like
Yeah.
I remember this card. This card came out before Arena, obviously, and it was like, oh yeah, cool. Like that's a nice
hmm
card. It's kind of fun to be in a, and I think it was also in a core set at one point. It was like cool.
Yeah.
Um, but it never really was like a hallmark card or anything. But I think in the Arena era, it really is. I've spoken to numerous different people that joined, played Arena for the first time, and were either like, this card is awesome, I love it, I can't believe it's a common or whatever, and I get to build my deck around it. And then people were like, how the hell do you beat the life gain deck? And
hmm
I remember having to be there and be like, how do I tell them that the life gain deck is really bad?
Yeah.
And just like I want to give them some strategies and ways to think through how to attack that deck without trying to come off like too telling you what to do kind of thing.
Yeah, but
So
I think you're right that like we don't think often about how Arena does have its own kind of ecosystem as far as like cards that people find and decks that are put together fairly often. Because when you're playing cards like in paper, it's just kind of like cards that you have. But on Arena, it often is you can just search through all the cards and find which ones you like. And the life gain deck that is around is really cheap to make and packs a big punch. And also, it feels like you won't ever die because you gain a million life or whatever. And so those are
right.
all feelings that you enjoy having when you first start Arena. So it makes sense that that would be a marquee thing. It's like a rite of passage to either play that deck or play against it and either love it or hate it. It's just one of those things that when you join Arena, you're like, that's one of the decks you're going to run into. And so, yeah, there is definitely a group of people that have a Johnny's Pride mate at the same kind of emotional tier as Sarah Angel for other people, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I realized after looking at this set, a little more. My initial reaction was like, oh, it's cool. They have all these like
Hmm.
Hallmark cards, but they actually did a good job of spreading out those Hallmark cards to appeal to anyone. Like, I'm pretty sure anytime you started playing this game, you'll find something like that in this
Hmm.
set for you. Um, and that's what they, needed to do with this product is, go back to the roots and it drafts like a core set, which is what I wanted. It does feel like a core set when you play this.
Hmm.
Um, right down to, everything about it. Like the bombs are the bombs. And then the rest of the stuff's kind of dirtily, and it's like white has the life game theme, and it just Llanowar Elves is the best green common. Just like for me, it just ticks all these boxes of like what I remember drafting core sets in the past. So
Exactly.
um,
Yeah. And it's like combat focused enough, but also like two threes are really important, and like stats on creatures matter, all that kind of stuff that like you want Magic to be.
yeah.
It fits right here. Um, yeah, I love this set a lot. Like I've continued to draft it and play it, and so I still find fun things you can do with it. One thing I did want to mention that I just like noticed throughout playing is that they did a really good job with like I think they do this often enough, but they really made sure to hit home on this specific set to do it, where there are instant speed ways to affect the board in every color at one
Mm.
mana. And so like white has fleeting flight at common. Blue has fleeting distraction. We like black has stab, burst lightning, and giant growth. Like all these cards, when you're attacking into somebody, whatever color they are, you could be like, well, does this card actually screw me up? And that it is a good way of teaching people. It's very easy and tangible to be like, every color has something. I can start thinking about it now,
Yeah.
and teaches new players, which is the most important part of core sets, teaching new players to start trying to think about what is in their opponent's hand,
Hmm.
because it's fairly easy to know there is these benchmarks for these different interactive spells. So
Yeah.
I
I
thought
was
that
going to
was
ask, is this
well
part of
done.
their like template moving forward? Do you think this is an intentional thing that will be just sort of a draft staple, or was it specific for this product?
So I think that this is specific for this product. Um, I think that they often want to be able to have the ability to do stuff like that, but I don't know if they want it to be in every single set where like blue is able to have like does blue always need a card that hits a creature for one mana? And I say hit a creature, but it just makes it a little bit smaller. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and that card specifically doesn't have as much impact on combat as the rest of them.
I kind of
But
feel
it's
like that card has been in almost every draft, like some variant of the one mana blue. They call it the blue
thing.
swords to plowshares, but they're always terrible.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like that's been in at least the last few sets. I don't really remember.
Um,
Like, I didn't play Bloomborough, but
the
uh,
specific like sometimes it's one mana, sometimes it's two mana,
hmm.
and it will fluctuate whether it's like playable or not. Similar to like the blue thing that turns your stuff into a creature. Like sometimes it turns into a 3/3, sometimes it's a 4/4,
Oh
sometimes you draw a
yeah,
card, sometimes
right.
all that kind of stuff. And it
Or there's
usually,
one often one that like makes them into a crabby 1/1, like it's a crab
yeah,
or it's a
right.
frog or it's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It turns something into a frog, yeah. So those things will happen, but I don't think we often have sets where it's like every single color has
Yeah.
something specifically at one mana. And then there's also a lot of like uncommons that are also one mana that also affect the board like that. You have Snakeskin Veil and Joust and other things like
Yeah.
that. So I really enjoyed that because it did seem specific to be like these are very important things for limited players to learn. Like red player attacks into you, sure strike. It should come like just alarm bells. You should always like have that feeling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
And
like
it's
built into me at this point.
exactly. And
Like
so
often I'm not even 100% certain that Sure Strike's in the set, but I'm still
mhm.
playing around Sure Strike because I'm
Well, it's
like
usually
it's in the set often enough, and
yes,
it's a blowout
it's a huge
when you
blowout.
run into it without being aware of it, because it basically just means you auto lose combat pretty much.
Exactly.
Um,
And so I think they did a really good job making sure, like, we have Sure Strike, we also have Fake Your Own Death and Black and things like that where you you can feel that. And I do think that this is perfect for new players to be able to recognize those. And they're all very iconic types of cards, right?
yeah.
So they do all the things you want. It's great. So I'm very happy with the bread and butter that this set is, and the palate cleanser it is as well. Where kind of like you were saying, core sets it drafts like a core set, and that oftentimes when people use those words, it's derogatory
Yeah.
where they're
I
saying like,
love it.
"Oh, it's just a core set." I'm just so bored. Like I don't want to play these. Like it's just not complicated enough. I'm not like stimulated. And I've heard people say that, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. Like I do get that, but people like new players have to have an entry point someplace, and it's also nice to take a break every once in a while and like get to sit back and live in the world of like old. I don't know. Remember the corset days. I think the bread and butterness of it is what also attracts me to it as well. Um,
Yeah, I'm always a little skeptical of because I've heard that as well. It's like, is that really how you feel, or are you being influenced by people who are pro players who play a lot, who are
mhm,
expressing that sentiment? Like the community is expressing that sentiment. Because to me, it's like Magic on its own and Draft on its own are complicated enough
mhm.
that, like, unless I play a lot, I really don't need you to ratchet up the complexity from just like
Exactly.
a core set level draft. Like, this is still a very like your games are still going to be interesting and
Hmm.
complex, and the draft is still not going to be a cakewalk. Like, I don't really get
Yeah.
that argument personally. I think I've always thought like the game, if anything, is too complicated. And
Hmm.
so whenever they make these rules that simplify things, I'm like, good, we don't need extra layers of complexity. The game itself is, it's already like a dynamic chess match where the
Hmm.
pieces are always changing. Is that not enough on its own? Like,
It's true. I mean, you're even talking about rules, right? We had a rule change with this set.
right.
Like this was the set where we changed the rules with blocking and how you not how you assign damage, but you just don't have to assign it before damage is immediately going to be happening right afterwards.
Yeah.
Um,
Great
so
change.
great change. And I found myself a couple times being like, oh, I can. I was like, oh, wait. I either play this right now or damage is happening, and then we just don't have to worry about it.
Just doesn't matter. Like,
Just doesn't
yay.
matter. Yay!
Yeah.
I don't have to get like blown out for something,
Yeah.
um, which I
Because
think
that
is
rule,
great.
like the only thing that rule changed is weird edge cases where this mattered and you had to worry about it and you got rewarded for knowing that. And I'm always in favor of those rules not existing.
Exactly. It reminds
Yeah.
me of like when I was learning how damage on the stack worked and how
Oh,
sacrificing
yeah.
creatures while doing that could be really powerful.
Yeah.
But it was also extremely complicated, and you needed someone who'd been playing the game for a long time to be like, it doesn't. I know it's not really intuitive, but this is how the rules work.
And
And
also,
any
frankly, like doesn't really make any sense.
it
Like,
doesn't. But like every time someone starts with, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but this is how it works.
yeah.
You should probably change that. You should just make the rule the thing that people already think it is, right? That just is a lot easier for almost always that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I
It's
think
already
there's
hard enough to buy that I can like block and then sack, and then for some
mhm.
reason your creature was stymied by that. It's like that already is a bit of a stretch for me in terms of the immersion into what's happening on the battlefield. Like
Yeah, exactly.
if I'm imagining it, but not only that, but my creature also like killed your guy on the way out,
It's just like
or
what
like
the
did
hell?
some damage. Like
Yeah. I think Mark Rosewater often talks about how when they're playing with designing suspend cards, when they were creatures and they would enter at the beginning of your upkeep after waiting like 4 turns, players intuitively thought that they could just attack with it immediately because they've been waiting for so long. And technically, with the rules, it was
Yeah.
like, nope, you can't do that. And so then later they're like they just added haste to everybody, just like, all right, just do it. Should do the thing that you think it should do.
Right.
It's
Just add a turn onto it and give it haste.
yeah. Yeah, that's all you got to do, and then people will be able to play it the way that they think it's supposed to work, and you don't have to have nearly as many misplays because
Yeah.
it just feels like I've been
And I
waiting
get
for so long to get this creature. Now I have to wait
right.
with it on the battlefield again. That sucks. So,
And I get the other way is stronger, right? If you can
mhm.
block. But yeah, just do the thing that you don't want to get got, basically. And the thing that always reminds me of is I think we've all probably gotten hit by this, but I know it I have, is when you animate a land that you've played that turn and
Yeah,
it can't attack. And now they just put like when you animate a land with some sort of effect, they always give it haste. Because they're like, you shouldn't be worrying about which forest was the one you played this turn
hmm
versus like, and yeah, sure, sometimes it matters because like I didn't have a forest before, but I really want to animate the forest. But in the grand scheme of things, like let's just make it work the way that you think it should and not
yeah.
force people to track like that your land has summoning sickness when turned into a creature. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's super true. Actually a little side tangent, but that reminds me with Pioneer Masters, they brought a bunch of like awaken spells
mhm.
that animate your lands when you cast them. But there was a bug on Arena where it would always animate one of the tapped lands. Always. And like you just could not animate an untapped land. And it was so horrific. You'd be
That's
like,
awful, yeah.
I pick this land to be the one that's animated. And Arena's like, cool, tap it, play the spell. Sick. You're like, what the fuck? You're like, I must have done it wrong. It's like, no, Arena's forcing you to do this. It
It's
sucks.
like no, I had enough mana in my pool. I explicitly tapped the lands
Yeah.
first.
They're like, nope, you're
You're
gonna
not
target
gonna
this
tap
one.
this one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So anyway, um, ugh, yeah,
that's funny.
yes. Um,
I was
anyway,
gonna
Jeff.
say
Well,
though that like what to your point, the one mana spells being good
mhm,
for new players and all that. There's also the other side of that, which is in a lot of the drafts I did, I'd be like, all right, what if they have giant growth here? Not totally sure. Let's go to combat, and it zips straight through to combat. And I'm like, they don't have giant growth. Attack me.
yeah, we're fine.
They're like, yeah. Technically, you should hold priority. Like, you should have full
Full
control on.
control. Yeah, but
Um,
that's no fun. Nobody likes playing with full control. Just like play your evolving wilds, never crack it. Keep full
yeah,
control. And then,
yeah. I've given up on like a lot of that stuff. Like, even when I was playing, if when I was in OTG, I guess that was the last time I was playing like yeah, high
competitive.
ranked,
Yeah.
limited. Um, I whatever. Like crack the evolving wilds immediately and go get an island tapped and just pass it. Like I don't want to deal with that shit. So I don't
Yeah.
think it gives like enough of an edge that, and it feels a little weird to me, like arena mechanics making you. It doesn't feel like part of the game. Maybe I'm old school that way, and so I just never really bothered with it. But sometimes I do benefit on the other side of the coin where I'm just like, okay, I was worried about a card, but arena is basically telling me you don't have it. So
Yeah. I mean,
like.
the biggest one is when you like try to cast a spell and it just goes straight down. You're like, they don't have a counter spell. Okay, sick.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I mean, at that point, I guess you've already like cast it.
well,
But
I guess sometimes I'll cast a different spell to be like, let's just maybe I'll bait out the counter spell, and then there's no spell at all. I'm like, oh, sick! I can just slam this. I don't even care.
yeah,
Awesome. That's great.
true.
So it does
Yeah,
give it gives a peace of mind a little bit sometimes,
yeah. The
but
worst one I think is sometimes you can see your opponent like hovering your creatures, and so you know they're
I
about to like kill your bomb, and it's
that's
just like there's just that 5 second wait time where you're just like, no, it really seems like they have it, and then it's like, boom,
well,
bake it to a
the
pie. You're
worst
like,
one
fuck
is
you.
yeah, when they look at their infestation sage and then they look at
Yeah,
your creature and you're like, they're
yeah.
gonna eat it alive. They're gonna eat it
Yep.
alive.
I already
Fuck.
know what's happening. I already know. I already know
Yeah, god damn
it.
it.
And it's like
It happens
98% of the time it
yeah, like
happens. And then-
so often. It's either that or it's like fighting it or something. Um So
Yeah.
then often when my opponents are like looking at my cards and like scrolling over them, I just try to look at all of their cards to be like, yeah, I'm looking at yours too, buddy.
Yeah, look at you over
Yeah, what's in your
here.
graveyard? How many lands do you got? What's going on over here? Just to be like, yeah, fuck you. Don't look at my cards. Don't touch them. Like imagine like your opponent in like paper kept picking up your cards to like look at them.
Yeah.
Stop looking at them. Just don't worry about it. Come on, man. Like
It's basically like the equivalent of your opponent going like, "What's the toughness on your guy there? Four.
yeah, yeah.
What's my dude's power? Five.
Five.
Five
Okay.
is it's larger than four. Okay, fight spell.
Yeah. Rabbit bite. Perfect.
Yeah.
You're like, God damn it. Ugh. Yeah, it is very much the equivalent of like what life total,
Yeah.
and you're like, no, don't do it, don't do it. Yeah,
My favorite one in paper was always like in sets that had mind rot, and it's like cards in hand. And you're like two.
two.
Black
Oh,
player, 3 mana, considering. Cards in hand, you're like,
fuck.
these are the two
I
best cards in my entire deck.
Yeah, I will say I really like the mind rot that we had in this set. We've been getting a lot of different like variants of this, but I think
Yeah.
it's called Seeker's Folly. Yeah, Seeker's Folly. Um, Either mind rots your opponent or their creatures get -1/-1. I think that those are like a nice abilities to staple to each other, just because it's like you don't often want to just run mind rot by itself because it's so dead at certain
Yeah.
points. Though majority of the time you're playing Seeker's Folly as a mind rot, but every once in a while you're like, huh. Look at all those like X ones you have on the other side. Wow, you made a lot of fairy tokens. Would be a shame if they all
Ooh.
died.
Yeah. No, this is a really well designed one. Like you said, we've been getting more and more of this. Like, Mind Rot is never a card that you want to be one of the best cards in your limited set. Like, that is
No.
never going to be a fun limited format if
Mm-mm.
whatever version of Mind Rot you printed is the best card. Like, you
Pack
know,
one, pick one.
yeah, exactly, right? Like, and so it's super situational. It's a card that's really powerful in the right moment and mostly just kind of crappy.
Hmm.
And so is the creatures your opponents control get -1/-1, but its situational upside is a completely different situational upside than the Mind Rot one. And so you
Hmm.
still end up with a card that is like generally in most situations it's mediocre at best, but it now has like two different outs to being
Hmm.
really nice. And yeah, it's not overpowered, but it's fine, right? Like this is a fairly strong card in the grand scheme of things. Like, maybe mid, upper mid pack, or like if I'm playing black, I want one of these kind of thing.
I was often
Yeah.
like I rarely play the mind rot effects, and I was fairly off like happy to see this. Like, oh yeah, sweet. Like I do like
Yeah,
this.
you throw it in your black deck for sure. I
Yeah,
probably
I
don't
mean
play
like
two, but
no, probably not two. But in a deck that you're like, every once in a while it goes with tiny bones, that kind of happens. Or you have a bunch of burglar rats, so often your opponent is only at like 2 or 3 cards. So you're like, well, mind
yeah.
rot, just throw it in. That would be really helpful. Does every once in a while happen to be something we like. While we are talking specifically about limit, Jeff, do you want to talk about the cards that we picked for like best? But we did our pack zero pick ones, and we can look back and see how right or how wrong we were about these.
Yeah,
Maybe
let's do it. Looking back
more.
at my list, I feel pretty good about this. So
Yeah, I don't feel very good about mine. So, which I thought you would, of course, be happy to see and hear. So, if you don't know what we're talking about, in our pregame episodes, we do a pack zero, pick one, which is something that we didn't make up, but we do love doing it. Trying to guess the best commons and the best gold uncommon of the set. And all right, so we started off, we both picked the same white card, which we do one of every colors. And then we also do two miscellaneous. That's the important information I forgot to tell you. So for white, we both picked Banishing Light because it seemed like a home run slam dunk. Like this is definitely going to be one of the best white cards.
what's gonna be better?
What's going to be better? Turns out a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we were both wrong here.
We were both wrong. We didn't really expect Dazzling Angel to be like one of the best, sorry, the best white common.
Yeah.
Dazzling Angel is a 2/3 that flies and gains you life. Ends up being just the exactly what you want. It
I get
was,
this though. I love this card. Like I was
I love
always
it too.
taking this. So seeing this at the top, I may have been surprised before playing this format, but
Hmm.
after playing the format, I'm like, I always want this card because there's just
Yeah,
so much
or
stuff going on in white that like, your cat collectors, your pride mates and stuff. Um, you just want this. And like Soul
yeah,
Sister, 2/3 fly. This in retrospect, it seems kind of obvious. Like a 2/3 flying Soul Sister is a pretty awesome limited common.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I definitely didn't catch it at the time. I thought like pretty good, but probably not the best. Uh,
hmm,
I
yeah,
will say I had Helpful Hunter. I think that's what I was like. I remember hemming and hawing a little bit about Helpful Hunter, being like this could easily be the best white common. But that was also not correct. So
yeah. I mean, like I did pick Helpful Hunter later on in one of my miscellaneous ones, so
yeah.
I did see that one, but so the best white commons is Dazzling Angel, Luminous Rebuke, then Helpful Hunter, and Banishing Light is fourth. So
I think
obviously
Luminous
still up
Rebuke
there.
is the surprise to me. Like
It also,
this
yeah.
effect always shows up, and it always is mid pack. She's always mid
Hmm.
pack, and this is like, and we should say white's really tight. We're talking
Hmm.
0.1% difference, win rate
Between all of
differences.
these, yeah,
Um, and so, Banishing Light, even though it was the fourth best, it was literally like 0.3% win rate
yeah,
worse than the best. So it's not like we totally whiffed here. There were just a lot of really good, like six
white,
cards that were all in the 57%
yeah,
win rate.
like
Um, Kind of crazy actually. But Luminous Rebuke, wouldn't have picked as the second best white common ever. You could have given me like, 100 tries at this and never would have picked that one. So
100 tries. Well,
yeah,
there's only so many ones you could. I guess
I
do they
would have
tell you what it
refused to
is?
pick it.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna pick Make Your Move before you pick Luminous
I would
Rebuke.
have picked Banishing Light every time.
Oh, okay,
So
gotcha. That makes sense. Banishing Light over and over and over again.
like, no, we're
Um,
telling you that's wrong. It's like, I don't think so.
I
Banishing
don't
Light.
think so. Um, so we were both kind of in the same boat with that one. For our blue cards, we were not in the same boat, and I am upset. I'm very upset with what I've done.
So yeah, I feel like you talked me into this maybe, but I picked your card later. Uh,
You did. I forgot that you picked it later. Wait, that's perfect. Yeah, so I picked Witness Protection, which is not even like close to the top. I think it's like it
I hate this card. Like when I'm drafting, I'm just like, nah, I
it's
don't even
very
want it.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is it's the one power is what does it. It's that like the Witness Protection turns their creature into a 1/1, but because it's a 1/1 it can still kill you. And we are coming off of a set where the 1 mana enchantment made the creature an O2, which was so much more important. O2, so much worse to have than a 1/1.
Yeah.
Anything with power is just horrible. Um, so this ended up being like a very begrudgingly playable. Like I guess I have to play this removal spell because I didn't get anything else.
Yeah.
Like
This is you
ugh.
stretching for removal.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the role
like
it plays in this set.
yeah. Instead of being like oh sweet witness protection, that means blue's open. That was not the case.
Yeah.
Which is what I kind of hoped it was going to be. But that I thought that was going to be the best blue common. It's obviously not. Um,
Yeah. I mean, part of
well,
that too is like Eaten Alive. Just I hate when I play that on something and
mhm.
then they just use Eaten Alive against me, and I'm like,
Well, also run away together. Not that that was an amazing blue card, but that was
yeah.
also an issue that comes up every once in a while. If you're like, they just bounce it. Okay, cool.
There's some
Or
sacrifice stuff. There's some like disenchant stuff. It's just like it
mhm.
adds up enough to be like, this card. Sucks.
Yeah, it was very not good. And I should have known, like, at the end of the set, like, I can tell you, Refute is, like, the best blue common,
Yeah.
by, like, a nice little chunk.
I
It's,
never would have picked that one either. I mean, like
like,
fancy
I was,
cancel.
Fancy Cancel ends up being awesome, and it is the card where you're drafting and you're like, oh, Refute. Oh, sick. Maybe should I be in
Yeah.
blue? Because it just ends up being great. The stapling draw, like the loot on it, helps so many random like draw two effects that like are in the set. Little things like that. Also, just
Yeah.
looting is just good to do.
I think,
And
yeah, I think I just auto corrected my brain. I'm like, oh, it's cancel with minor upside. We've seen this a billion times. It's always medium.
mhm.
But like, loot is not a minor upside. Looting
Looting
is
is
a, especially
great,
in a core set that cares about drawing extra cards. Like,
and you can flood
looting is
out.
very serious upside.
Hmm.
And in core sets, cancels are better than usual because there's just bombs that can take over the game. You just hold your
Exactly.
cancel.
Hmm.
Um, so it kind of makes sense. I can explain it to myself in retrospect, but I never would have picked it.
No. But honestly, the card I should have picked and I was closest to picking is the one that you picked, which, I mean, go ahead, do your victory lap
Second
joke.
best blue common was Big Fin Bouncer, the 3/2 for 4 mana war cards.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just solid limited card. Um, Always excited to see this when I'm playing blue.
Yeah. So good, it got a nickname. It's called the Bounce House. That's what we call it on stream. Go for
Love
the
it.
Bounce House. Get that big shark guy throwing you off the
I remember
ship.
one of the first games I played on Arena, so not in the paper pre-release that I went to.
Hmm.
On Arena, I got Big Fin Bouncered 4 times in the same game, and
It
I got
is,
smoked. But it was just like the third one was like, I don't know if we could win anymore, team, and then the fourth one was
mhm.
like, cough.
that that happened to me the other day. I had a pretty good draft going, and then 3 games in a row, Big Fin Bouncer was the thing that fucked me up. And
Yeah.
I got so mad at the end. I went like 4-0 to 4-3, and I was like, you gotta be
Yeah.
fucking kidding
All
me. It's like,
all
God
because of Big
damn.
Fin Bouncer.
Just Big Fin Bouncer. Like, and it was all different decks too, and they were all doing different things slightly. Like one was a bit more tempo, but some were more aggressive that were playing. It was just like, what the this card is so annoying and so good, and I got to forget it. Anyway, I do love Big Fin Bouncer, and the art is dope. So happy for this to take the mantle of like people will think about this as the Man of War,
Yeah.
right? If we come into like if we look back on this set in like 5, 10 years, people will just talk about bouncers as like different cards instead of Man of War because
Yeah.
that's a perfect name for this. It's a
It's a
bouncer. It bounces
bouncer.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every creature that bounces stuff is a bouncer now, and they. I don't know how we haven't come to this conclusion earlier than now, but it's so good. I mean,
I
I guess
feel like,
we're moving into Magic's like kind of goofy age, so I guess it makes more sense. But
well, there was a card from Mercadian Masks that I had as a kid.
oh,
It
you're
was
right.
in
They're
my random box of rando magic cards that was called
oh,
Waterfront Bouncer. And
right.
it was not very good. It was a 1 mana or 2 mana 1/1. You pay a blue and tap it and discard a card to bounce something. Um, but I remember at that time being like, I get it.
I get it. This is sweet.
Yeah,
I do. He's the dude, the blue dude who's got the
yeah, he's like
guys
a
under his
buff. Like,
arms. Yeah,
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 he's got the
yeah.
double headlock. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They have okay. All right. I just feel like since that card, have we had another bouncer card since then?
I think the silliness comes in waves, right? And so
Yeah. I mean, like
there
we're
was some
definitely
old
on.
school silliness for sure. And then they got serious for a while, and now they're back to allowing some more
Yeah.
silliness.
I guess we've had a couple other cards named bouncer, but most of them have been very frequent. 2 of them were from like Nuka Pena, and then Big Fin
Hmm.
Bouncer and Waterfront, of course. So the history of Magic's bouncer cards. Um, yes, if you didn't pick Refute or Big Fin Bouncer, the other cards that are up here at the top are Think Twice and Uncharted Voyage,
Yeah,
which of course,
no
obviously, all these
surprise
things
there
make sense.
really. Yeah.
Moving into black, I also missed on this one for whatever reason. Yours obviously makes more sense. I think I should have like just stopped thinking as much. I like
Yeah. You just picked
you.
all the one mana cards, man, and you
I
hit
did.
on
I
one of them,
love.
man.
I love you hit on one of them. Ouch! You got to really hurt me. It's because I love cheap cards. But then, of
Yeah.
course, whatever. We'll
You
get
didn't pick
into
the
it.
green one though.
Shut up. Shut up. Okay, for black, the best black common is bake into a pie.
Yeah, come
Jeff,
on. Of course it is.
what card did you pick?
I picked bacon to a pie. It kills something. It makes
Makes you
a
food.
food token. It's probably not the fastest format because it's a core set.
You're right. It
Yeah.
makes sense. The next best card is Stab, and then Infestation Sage and Burglar Rat. I picked Eaten Alive, which is the fifth best card, which
There you go.
is, but it's significantly worse. And you do need other stuff. I have also like I liked the Exile effect on this. I liked the sacrificey stuff. It's a really good card, and you can use it. But obviously, in a vacuum, if you're just picking like Eaten Alive does need more stuff around it. You do need Infestation Sage and Burglar Rat in your deck to make this much better.
Yeah.
Paying 5 mana for Eaten Alive sucks ass. So
Yeah, it's something
while
you have to do
yeah, while
sometimes.
strangely paying 4 mana for Bacon to a Pie does not feel that bad.
Golden.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Happy
will
as a clam.
say the one thing about Eaten Alive that was really important in this set that came up often enough is that Alenda, the Orzhov legend, the 4 mana
Yeah, yeah.
4/4 lifelink that has hexproof from instants, Eaten Alive was very important because it's a sorcery.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that ended up being huge, specifically for that card, which it's a rare, so it would pop up every once in a while. You did run into that one often enough, and it's pretty hard to beat if you can't target it. But yeah, I think that would be the biggest thing when that card came down. I'd be like, do I have Eaten Alive in my deck?
Yeah.
Or Banishing Light. That's the other card you could use, which the better version is the instant speed version. So,
Cars.
all right,
All right. Let's go to one of your wins here.
let's go. Red
Yeah.
Burst Lightning, best red card, easy. Knew
Good
that one for
choice.
sure.
Good choice.
I know you picked it too. Oh no, you didn't.
I
Oh my
didn't.
gosh. Yes, buddy. I forgot.
Which I feel is like I'm surprised that this wasn't one of my miscellaneous because, like, I know this card is awesome and limited. I wonder if I thought it was something else, but I could buy that. I thought Gorehorn Raider might be better, which is what I picked, and that's the
Mhm.
second best red common. I'm just surprised Burst Lightning wasn't then one of my miscellaneous picks or whatever. I just like moved on. I think I thought
I
red wasn't very good, so
I was
like,
going to bring that up. I was going to say
figure it.
specifically, you had said multiple times, red looks really weak. I don't think it's going to be any good.
Yeah.
So
Still surprised I didn't choose this though, because like it's shock with upside. You know what I mean? Like
well,
shock's
see,
already decent.
Jeff, you're doing so well. You had to give me one, right?
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Let's give him burst lightning, the
Yeah, yeah,
obvious red choice, and they won't even show up in my list.
yeah, exactly.
I'm just gonna choose two fucking random ass miscellaneous cards that kind of tank my points here, but
Yeah. The other cards behind that are surprisingly involuntary employment, which this has got to be the win percentage on this card is because it's only used in decks that actually use it correctly.
yeah, yeah.
So that doesn't mean that you should pick it above. But
Red
like
is so thin. Just looking at these win
Sower,
rates, like
Sower of Chaos is also fourth best, which once again is only good in the deck it's good in and
Mhm.
is unplayed in every other deck. So that those are both two weird cards to see. Like Involuntary Employment only in Rakdosak and Sower of Chaos basically only in Gruul because you want to
yeah.
make sure your opponent can't block and it has 4 power. So like important
And
for
even
those.
then, its win rate is not like off the charts. It's like
No,
mediocre.
it's very mediocre.
Yeah.
You were correct to think that red was fairly bad. So good job on that one, at least. Okay, we're moving on to green. This is the worst, one of the worst things. I want to remind everyone that looking at this game is a lot easier from the outside. If you aren't tasked with actually having to pick cards, it's a lot easier to sit back and be like, well, of course it's this card. Duh, don't you
Yeah,
know? But like when you put a timestamp on this being like, I have to sit down and decide, you
without playing it
can
at all. Yeah,
you can talk yourself into anything.
anything,
Like this
literally
is
anything. Yeah,
this is your fantasy football lineup like 100%. You can convince yourself that one of your star players might be injured and you should play some random guy off the waiver wire. And then, of course, your star player is amazing. And you're like, why the fuck did I do that?
yeah,
Like, you're going for weird upsides that aren't there. You know what I mean? Like, just
yeah,
don't think too much, you know? Thinking too much can be bad for you.
yeah.
Um, that is the case with my pick for green. Um, Jeff, you can remind us what you picked. I mean, it's
I picked
obvious.
Llanowar Elves,
Hmm.
which this is my favorite part of this because this visual view that we're 17 lands has now added a visual view to the best commons, whatnot. And what you see is like Llanowar Elves and then nothing for like so more than any other color, just nothing, 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 and then Bite Down is like way down there.
Yeah,
Land War Elves is the only thing that got above a C plus in green, according
yeah.
to 17 lands. So yeah, was happy to see that. It makes sense to
To,
me. Land War Elves is great.
it is true. To be fair, the actual visual distance is because there are so many B minus white cards that they make
Don't
that
worry about
tier
that.
look so
Don't worry
huge.
about that.
Um, but
But
yes,
still, green is the only one that only has one above a C plus.
you're right. So Lana Warrior Elves is the best. Then Bite Down, Wary Thespian, and Beastkin Ranger. Those are the top four. All those make a whole lot of sense.
Yep.
Guess which card
And
I
which one of
picked.
those did you pick?
Oh no! You got to scroll down a little bit further.
Oh, wait, versus car. What did you pick?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, oh,
So it's
there it
yeah,
is.
yeah. It's not the worst green card because that was grow from the ashes and broken wings. Those were the worst green cards. I picked Apothecary Stomper with the idea that there are many draft formats where 6 mana cards that enter and gain
Yeah.
you life are important. What I failed to I realize about the card is that all those other cards were 6 mana sixes that gain you 4 life. This card is a 6 mana 4/4 that gains you 4 life, or a 6 mana 6/6. You don't get both.
Yeah. I feel like you had me going with that pick too, and
I did. I
I
did.
was thinking of it as both. For sure. I
Yeah.
was thinking of that. I was like, oh, it's like that card we all love, but it has vigilance now.
That's great. No, 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 no. It's when you have to decide between like stabilizing the board and making sure you don't die for the flyer or whatever. But you're like, okay, well, if I play a
Feels
6 mana 6/6
bad.
vigilance, I get to like try to claw myself back. But if I don't gain 4 life right now, I do lose the game. So
Yeah.
like,
I
I
guess
guess,
6/6 hope they don't attack.
yeah, like, um, yeah. So this is one of those situations where I talked myself into it, and that was dumb. The obvious choices were between Llanowar Elves and Bite Down, and of course I made the
I feel
wrong
like
one.
yeah, bite down's like the defact always the whatever the more efficient removal spell or like just
Hmm.
the better removal spell, I guess, is your
Instant
that should be
speed.
your default.
Instant speed is really important, I think, with this obviously, because Bite Down
Yeah.
is instant speed.
Yeah.
Um, Miscellaneous cards, we have already talked about a couple of these. You picked Witness Protection. I picked Helpful
Yeah.
Hunter. Your second miscellaneous card didn't really. I'm surprised by this one. It's like pretty low, but also in
Yeah.
my picks, I stopped picking it as highly as I did.
Same.
And
Yeah. So I'm not
yeah,
surprised to see this. I picked Prideful Parent,
hmm
um, which is like lower mid pack white cards. One of the lower mid packs.
yeah,
Appropriate
yeah.
description there.
Yes,
Um, And that's just how I feel. Like, I don't know if I have a good reason to say why this card isn't good.
it's 3 mana.
Yeah, I just don't like it really. And so I don't take it. And when I started, I took this more like upper mid pack early, and then it
Hmm.
just kind of moved down and down and down. And now it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll play it, but I don't really want to.
I think that there's just so many things vying for the 3 mana slot.
Yeah,
I mean, we were already talking about Dazzling Angel and like Banishing Light. This ends up being like, oh man, if this card wasn't 3 mana, we also have Make Your Move, which ends up falling into your deck often enough because you need removal spells. But
yeah,
like, man, 3 mana is just such a tight spot. There's so many things fighting over it. And it doesn't have the same kind of strength that like Felidar Savior does at 4 mana, which is like come down, put counters on stuff. I'm going to start gaining life. Like
yeah.
that ends up being so huge, and it kind of takes up the slot of I'm stabilizing the board, which Prideful Parent is a little bit more aggressive, but I don't know. If Cats was a stronger archetype, like if Claws Out was common, this card would be way different. But because
Yeah.
Claws Out isn't uncommon, I don't know. It's just
Could also be just my own logic here should have dictated like I just feel like both bodies end up not being relevant almost immediately. And it's because
mhm.
like, I should have just remembered like core sets are 2/3 formats. And
Two,
so
three
a
formats
2/2 and
always.
a 1/1 is not helpful when your opponent has a 2/3. It just like
Yeah,
sucks.
it's just like this is the worst. Like, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do with this thing?
I just
I'd
want a
rather have
3/3.
like,
Fuck.
or even a 2 mana 3/1. I would be able to like
Yeah.
attack into, but like we
Right.
can at least trade.
Yeah. I
But yeah,
forgot the law of the 2/3.
yeah. So that's important to know. Law of the 2/3. Well, hey, you know what would really help this situation? If you have a 2/2 and a 1/1, what makes them better? But an equipment that gives it +1/+1. Because that is the card that I picked. Gold Vein pick. This was a stretch for me, and I am okay with the this
I
stretch
hate
pick.
this card. Never play this.
I play this specifically in blue decks, blue white
Yeah.
decks. I like to play it because the only way it's good is like if you have Healer's Hawk and the Strix Lookout. Those
Yeah.
cards where you get to slap it on and start like ramping because you get treasures when you attack. That's great, or hit your opponent. But the Boros deck ended up not being really high on the list of decks that were ones you wanted to play. It just like
I liked
this
it. I thought it was fine.
I thought it was definitely fine. But Goldvein picked my reasoning behind it was that when it was introduced in Kaldheim, Boros aggro was one of the two decks you could play basically,
Right.
and it was a huge piece in that deck. Like you wanted to be able to like pump your creatures a little bit, but also get extra treasures to be able to play more stuff, and also hit really hard. And in this format, could have been like I was thinking maybe your 2/2s become 3/3s, and then you can attack into their 2/3s. But just it ended up being like sometimes it happened to be in your deck, and it was because you were splashing and you wanted the treasure to splash. I guess like that's kind of
Yeah.
the only reason I ever saw for it to be around, and it's
Yeah, that was
it's below like almost all of the lands. That's how bad it is. So like
yeah, it's not good.
I mean, the lands are really good, but you would definitely pick any of the lands over this card almost
Yeah.
every single
And to
time.
your point about, thinking Boros would be better, like we both picked heroic reinforcements as our
Yeah,
gold
uncommon.
signpost uncommon, which ended up being like aggressively medium. It's
Yeah,
right in the middle of the
it is right in the
signpost
middle.
uncommons. So
Yeah, and like the top two by a lot is Dreadwing Scavenger and Empyrean Eagle, which are both
Empyrean
just
Eagle was the other one I was thinking about because like just obvious, right? It's just Lord.
oh yeah, yeah,
And like blue white flyer is always classic limited thing. And so I was
yeah,
like, gosh, maybe I should pick Empyrean Eagle, but I want to pick heroic reinforcement. Like I want it to be true that heroic
yeah.
reinforcements is the best. So
I know that I went with you knowing that. I think that ones that I wanted to be the best was like Fiendish Panda. And I think I have a really, really strong soft spot for Perforating Artist in my
hmm.
heart because I often take that card much higher than I probably should. But
Isn't it funny how that happens? There's always like one signpost uncommon that you just love, and it's like it's fine. Other people
mhm.
just think it's like okay. Like,
But I
I
see
was
it. I'm
like, I
like,
don't know. This card's good. This card's treated
oh,
me well, man. It's treated
yeah.
me well.
I mean, like it probably rolls into the fact that Alessia is very good, and you often see them just like straight together. Like
Yeah.
all the, it's like if you see perforating artists, you're like, Alessia's in this deck somewhere. Like it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
almost always happens. It's like if I trade with this thing, you're gonna slam Alessia and then get it back. Basically, it's gonna be really annoying. And this is so frustrating because that was one of the most winningest rares was Alessia, who laughs at fate.
Yeah, it
Um,
doesn't surprise me. Card's
yeah, like
nuts.
that's a kill on sight. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you card.
Yeah.
Like it's
I think the
or
thing I
like
missed when I first read this card was like,
first
for
strike.
some reason, no, I didn't. For some reason, my brain was like, oh, you have to wait a turn to trigger this raid.
No. It doesn't care about
No,
it attacking. No.
yeah. It's just, you just play it post combat and it happens.
Yeah, when your opponent attacks and you're like, these are weird. Do they have sure strike? Let's see if they have sure strike. They block. Oh, okay, this is fine. They play lesser. Like, oh, it's so much worse than sure strike. Oh, fuck, this
Oh
is
yeah, like
terrible.
ooh.
I really wish I did, but because the thing is, you fall into the situation where like, do I block their attacks anymore? I'm just losing life. But every time I block, you just get to bring it back.
Yeah, yeah. I was so sure that this like took a turn to cook here that the first time I played
Mhm.
against this, which was like the first draft I ever did on Arena.
I played this in the
Um,
pre-release. I
yeah,
was on this very early to be like, oh wait a second,
I, my
this card's
opponent played
very
this
good.
pre-combat, attacked. I blocked, traded with the creature, and then it came right the fuck
Hmm.
back at the end step. And I
You're
was
like,
like, oh, wait a minute. That happens right away. I should have read the card.
yeah,
Before committing that block, I probably should have read what this thing does.
yeah.
Um,
The really annoying thing with Alessia is when they have the infernal dude, the 3 mana 2/1 that when it dies it comes back as a 4/3
yeah,
because you just keep it comes back as a 4/3, then it dies, it comes back as a 2/1, dies, comes back as a 4/3
yeah.
over and over. Just like this is
I love Alesha. I actually play
insanity.
it. I actually messed around with it in constructed
Oh,
um,
it's so good.
because it works so well with Inti. Um, because you can first of all put counters on it to raise its
Hmm.
power quickly, but you just like attack with Inti that discards something,
Hmm.
and then you bring it back
You
with
just like
the
reanimate your stuff. Yeah,
yeah, and yeah, big fan of this card in the Inti black
so
red
good,
aggro deck.
so good. Um, While we're sitting here, obviously, Jeff, congratulations. You are the winner of the Pack Zero Pick One challenge for the arena regulars here.
Other than the white card and my
Mhm.
random miscellaneous picks and my signpost uncommon,
Yeah,
I picked either the best or second best common in
yeah.
every color.
The ones that I convinced you to pick, basically. I talk
Yeah,
about
those
witness
were all
protection
terrible
long
choices.
enough that you're like, oh, yeah, I
I
should do this.
forgot that burst lightning was in the set somehow.
Yeah. I would like to say that we have already kind of talked about this a little bit on the show, but I think there might be some apologies in order for Leyline Axe.
Oh yeah. I put this in my pre-release deck and then was like, what the fuck was I thinking saying this card wasn't good? Like,
Yeah,
Leyline Axe is great. Yeah.
it's
You posted a deck
great.
list that had two of them recently in the
I
Discord.
did. Yeah, I had two Leyline Axes in my deck. Um, Card's busted. Card's very
Yeah,
good.
it's very, very
You
good.
just it goes in any deck that's attacking and has creatures. And yeah, it sucks when it's not in your opening hand, but this format does there are enough games that kind of go to like top deckiness, which does feel like
Yeah.
classic Magic in a weird way to me. Where you're like, I just need if I can put this on literally any creature and it's like really hard to deal with. That's trample and double strike is so good. Um,
Yeah, once
yeah,
this card is on the battlefield, it's
hmm
insane in limited because
insane.
it turns anything into an absolute powerhouse.
Hmm.
The thought process I had was spending 4 mana just to do that sucks, but
Hmm.
getting it for free in your opener is awesome. So it's like
Yes.
you know.
Sometimes it
Spending four
sucks.
mana to do that is not as bad as I originally thought. But there are games you're going to lose because you drew this for the second or third turn of the game or whatever. Instead of it wasn't
Yeah, and
quite
then
in your opener, but it was still in
it
like your
wasn't in
top
the
10. Ugh,
yeah.
that's the worst. But it's like when you get those hands that have like three lands in the top seven cards, but also three lands in the top 20. And you're like,
Hmm.
fuck off. Like,
Yeah.
three lands in the top 20, I'm just going to mulligan it most of the time because I'll have a one lander. But of
Yeah.
course, they also had to be in the top seven.
Hmm.
That's like how I feel about Leyline Axe being in position like 8 through 10. I'm just like,
Oh
this
my
is the only
God.
way that this card sucks.
Yeah,
It's a basic.
picking it like drawing it second or then like the first card of the game is like you got to be kidding
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. It's like,
Like
ugh.
this is oh God. Now I have to sit with this in my hand the whole time. Um, but no,
I want like a
it's
card that has it has like the Leyline
miracle.
ability and Miracle. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Leyline Axe ended up being like it has a 61.1% win rate, very high,
That's
and
higher
it
than I would have guessed, though, because
a
I do
lot.
still lose because I draw this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh. Yeah,
But this isn't one of those cards that goes in specific decks. Like, sure, people won't take it all, like, I don't know, even
oh,
all the
it's
time,
so good in the Flyers deck, though.
but like, even just like pack one, pick one, Leyline Axe, you're like, "Yeah, okay, well, this can't be bad.
Yeah,
Like,
for
I just
sure.
take
Now that I
this.
see it's 61% win rate, and
Yeah,
it's
it's like, I don't need to pass
like
this card.
colorless for sure.
Yeah. So, and what's better than having one, but having two?
Yeah,
So, yeah. Anyway, I actually made a video of that draft, and it's going to go up on
that's
YouTube tomorrow.
awesome.
So, if you want to see that, go to my YouTube channel, regular Zach.
Did you
Uh,
ever? I mean, I don't know if I want to spoil it now, but did you ever double Leyline Axe out of your opener?
well, you'll just have to watch the video to find out.
I feel like you did.
But
Your opener's just like planes, healer's hawk, axe, axe. It's like I don't even care what the other three
the,
fucking cards are.
the thing
Three
is, like,
planes, healer's hawk, axe, axe.
one thing about like Leyline Axe is that if you have two equipped to the same creature, it doesn't really do that much, but add an extra
That's true. Yeah.
one plus one plus
Yeah.
one. So you might
Okay.
as well just have your gold vein pick in there.
You're right. Three planes, two healer's hawks, two Leyline axes. That's what
There
I'm
you go.
talking about.
All right, Jeff. We talked a lot about limited. We should talk a little bit about constructed.
Agreed.
And we do have our worthless slots. Happy hours are definitely our time to look back on all the cards that we like expected to be good, and
Yeah.
realize that we are either kind of wrong or very wrong.
Yeah.
Or sorry, that's just my experience. Jeff tends to be more right.
Occasionally.
But
Occasionally I snipe one.
yeah. Jeff, our worthless slot system. Would you like to quickly explain, as you do so well?
Yes, so before we play with the set, we look at all the cards and we choose cards that are worth putting in your deck, but we like to make it fun for ourselves. So we choose one that we think is obvious, one that we think has a chance, and one that we think is a long shot, but we would love it. We being the basketball aficionados that we are, we decided to name this our layup, our three-pointer, and our half-court shots. And then just to add a little spice, we choose an overrated card and an underrated card. So, Zach, what did you choose for your layup? The card that we
All
will
right.
definitely be seeing in
This
constructed.
is the card that you could definitely craft and feel totally fine with and super okay. Kiora the Rising Tides.
Does that card do?
Yeah.
Hold on.
So, well, all right. Don't have to. Ouch. So Kiora is a like a I have to look it up too. Sorry. It's two and a blue for a 3/2 legendary creature, Merfolk Noble at rare. When it enters, you get to Faithless Looting, so you draw two, discard two. And it has Threshold. When Kiora attacks, if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you make a legendary 8/8 octopus token. It's called Scion of the Deep. This card does show up in the standard, but not as a layup. This isn't some specific decks. I was specifically thinking about it in the abhorrent Oculus decks that we had been
Hmm.
seeing at the beginning of Duskmourn.
Yeah.
They have fallen away from popularity, and people have been realizing better, more powerful things to do. And Kiora was like a one or two of in that deck, just to find cards that you need to dump Oculuses into your graveyard, and also sometimes make an 8/8. So
I
ended
think
up
it's
not.
fine. Like,
It's definitely fine, but this is much closer to a 3 pointer, I think, than it was a layup.
yeah, I do see it, and I see it in that deck, and I think that deck is still like tier two. I think that's still
Hmm.
a strong deck. It's just not one of the ones that has kind of risen to the top.
Not like a
Uh,
home run slam dunk, you know.
and I think the big problem with it is just like the other home you might imagine for something like this is like the blue black deck, but it just has so many
Hmm.
options, and it's just without additional like graveyard synergies, it's tough for Cure to crack the starting lineup on a deck with that kind of
Yeah,
power level.
yeah, or Kraken, the starting lineup. Am I right? Even I know it makes an octopus token, but shut up. Um,
Shut
Also,
up,
just
listener.
shut up, listener. It is like 3 mana too, which is difficult because on turn 3 you'd much just prefer to Kaito or everything else. It just
That's the thing, right? Like there's Kaito, there's Preacher, the Schism,
yeah,
there's
it's like
something else, I'm sure.
there's a lot of stuff, if you're not utilizing the great, this is
Tishana's
only.
Tidebinder, maybe.
Oh, there you go. Tishana's Tidebinder. That's the card. Because that shuts down Zur and all that other shit. Um,
You really
but
hate Sir.
fuck Zur, man. Fuck that deck. I hate it. Um, but but Jeff, what was your layup?
I'm not sure my layup was went in necessarily either, but I picked Scavenging Ooze. The thinking here was this is like a really nice card for a deck that is a good deck, which is Golgari.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's all that, that's true. And I do see it. People play it. But they just talk about a deck that has a ton of options for great creatures to play.
That
This
also
deck,
deal with the graveyard. Yeah,
this deck just has that. I think when Tranquil Frillback is
that's
maybe
the
no
card I was thinking
longer
of.
a part of the format, then you'll see
Mhm.
more Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah,
Um, but I still see people playing Scavenging Ooze, but it's not as sort of ubiquitous as I thought it might be. I thought it would just definitely slot into those decks, and sometimes people choose not to play it even in those decks. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, a bit of a whiff here. I was thinking about because I was thinking for some reason I was like laser focused on Golgari, I guess. I was thinking between this and Maelstrom Pulse,
Yeah,
and I think Maelstrom Pulse would have been a better pick because they all just played Maelstrom Pulse. But
that does make sense. I think specifically like Golgari is kind of not as awesome.
I
Um,
still like it. I don't care what
yeah,
the data says.
I
Golgari is still dope.
I mean, like I'm mainly a limited player, so it's harder for me to like fully have a say in that. But I've seen some folks talking about how they're not like huge fans of Golgari in this meta. Um,
I think it's going to come and go. Like, I think this is going
yeah,
to be one of those metas where Golgari rises to the top as it chooses the right answers for the metagame and then falls out of favor when that metagame, when the like
yeah,
linear decks change, which linear decks are good.
yeah. I guess it just felt like, oh, the demons decks were cool, but the blue ones just ended up being better, and it Golgari was annoying to me because they liked to use their tranquil throwbacks to blow up my artifacts and enchantments, specifically enchantments, or
Yeah.
different things that I was trying to do. So that was annoying. Or like Glissa, like fuck you, Glissa. But
I think the
but
Pixie decks just caught them by surprise, man. Let give them
oh
give them some time to adapt to the Pixie decks.
no,
They'll be
Pixies
back.
are real. Pixies are great.
Hey, I'm
Pixie,
I'm on board with that. I'm just saying, like,
that's the deck that I
Golgari, the pull of the Golgari deck is it can adapt to anything. It's gonna be like
That's
the
true.
second best deck in any metagame that it wants to be.
Yeah.
Uh,
It is toolboxy for sure, which is not my
and like
style.
with Llanowar elves, it could have some pretty
Be
quick
explosive.
plays.
That's
Yeah.
true. All right. Well, yes.
Like turn two
But
Glissa, how you not getting behind turn two Glissa?
I think what I want to say about Scavenging Ooze as we're getting into it is just that like this is a card that you are safe crafting for sure because it is going to be
Oh
legal
yeah.
for 5 years. And this
Yeah,
will
and
be
it's
a
you can play this in sideboards in Explorer and stuff like that
yeah.
too. So
So like this is a great layup because you won't feel bad crafting this card if you don't have it already. So I will say that even though Jeff did cop out a little bit and only pick reprinted cards, but that's fine.
yeah, well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, pick the new
L-
cards.
every single card I picked was a reprint for
Yeah,
this
yeah,
entire section.
yeah,
Uh, Speaking of which, my three pointer
yeah.
was Immersturm Predator.
Mhm.
I think it's fair to say this three pointer missed. Um, I
I
played it.
wanted to. I was gonna say I wanted to hear your stories about this card.
Okay,
I
well,
haven't.
I have a story that is not. Ooh, no, I should save that story for
Okay, all
later.
right, all right.
So I will talk a little bit about this card, but I have tried to make Red Black Sacrifice work in this format. I
Hmm.
think it's fine, but there's something I'm more excited about, which I'll talk about later. So let's
Ooh.
just call this one a miss.
Okay.
Even I'm off it now, although I can't guarantee that I'm off it for good. It's one of
Okay.
those
All right.
habits you never fully kick.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of like
Man.
magic itself.
Yeah, exactly. I've tried to quit and use so many times Magic, and I just can't
Yeah.
do it.
Uh,
Um,
then Morrow makes a tweet, and I'm right back.
yeah. My three pointer was Abyssal Harvester. Um,
Demon.
yeah, fair to say that this one is also a miss. Um, I'm gonna blame recency bias on this because I had seen the power of it in draft and I was so angry and mad about it that I was like, you know what, fuck you, you better be good.
I'm
In
pretty sure
constructed,
you actively called that out while you were choosing it.
I
Like
yes, I did.
you're like I'm only choosing this because I just lost to it in draft and got pissed
Hmm.
off.
Yeah, so maybe I shouldn't do so many spiteful plays or choices, but
No,
I
we're
did.
here for it. Yeah, we're
Yeah, I
here
guess
for it.
so. Um, okay, so my half court shot, I was actually happy with this, and
I think both of us kind of did okay here on the half
yeah,
courts.
I
Yeah.
ended up playing this deck. I played both of the decks actually, but I ended up playing this deck and winning some games with it. Like it wasn't very great, but I chose Maze's End. Just the fact that like, hey, if you want to play like a gates deck where you have to try to assemble all the different gates and use Maze's End to win the game, you can, and sometimes you win. A lot of times you just play tap lands and then lose. But
Yeah.
if you're okay with that, then test it out.
It's funny, you said you played both decks. I played against both decks, and so I was like, "Hey, that's
Oh.
cool. Like people are trying this." I easily won
Hmm.
both times against both decks, but other people were like trying to make it work. So
Yeah, I'm the
that was
dreamer
neat.
of the two of us, and you're the dream crusher. I get it.
I'm playing aggro. You play your tap lands, idiot. Like,
Yeah. Well, Jeff, of course, you have to tell us what deck you picked for your half court
yeah, my
shot.
half court shot, and we're saying decks because these are really like they both choices were actually really about a very specific like
Yes.
archetype.
Hmm.
I chose Harmless Offering slash Demonic Pact. Choose whichever core you want or whichever card you want to your half court shot. But I'm specifically talking about the combo of Demonic Pact, get ahead on value, and then give it to your opponent for the lose the game clause.
Hmm.
Um, there was a brief like window of time when this set came out where you'd run into this deck fairly often.
Yeah.
I would pretty much always win, which I think is why there was only that like first few days to 1 week period where you would run
Hmm.
into it. But people tried it. People gave it
I
an honest attempt.
I will say that some of the versions I had seen and the one that I was playing was using the 4 mana like Black Tutor that if you sacrifice a
Yeah,
token, you get to put it on the battlefield.
yeah.
Um, that felt pretty good, and I ended up winning a few games with it. So that I was like, oh, I think I'm like, like I think I had a like what is it? My win percentage was higher than 50%. Let's just say that. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. I could do this.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a huge deep dive, and I didn't want to play for it for a tournament or whatever. But I was like, okay,
Yeah,
this is
I think it was
I like this deck.
fine. It's one of those things where if you draw the right cards, it's like, okay, I feel like I'm doing a real thing here.
And those are
Uh,
my favorite decks, Jeff. Where it's like,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
if I just
Hey,
draw the right cards in the right order, boy, my opponent's toast. If I draw them in the wrong
tell me
order,
about
I
it.
am just dead.
Yeah. If I draw them in any order other than this
Exactly this.
specific, yeah, this specific, arrangement of my 60 cards. Um, yeah, so like there's some powerful stuff that this deck was
Hmm.
doing. It just, I think, falls kind of prey to like the thing we're seeing these days, which is just that like the card quality is so high that you just lose to the decks that just play good cards,
Yeah. They're
like
like
70% of the time.
just like don't have to
So
cheese them out. You're just like, oh, you just okay, you just win because you get to play creatures and attack me, and I'm trying to cheese you out with this like
yeah,
funny combo. Okay.
it's the thing I've been experiencing more and more and more because I love to build these wacky decks that like try
Hmm.
to pull all these things together and it's just like when I accomplish the thing that my deck was built to do, what I'm doing is only like slightly more powerful than what my opponent's just doing by playing cards on curve. And so that's becoming more and more true to the point where like, is it even better
It's
than what, just playing Kaito? Like just
it's
carry
like
Mastermind into Kaito? I don't even think it is, and I have to have
yeah,
like
like
five cards coordinate correctly to do my thing.
all right, if I have five different cards, I make one planeswalker.
Yeah, my opponent's like, yeah, yeah, cool, Fairy Mastermind, Kaito, Shieldred. It's like,
Yeah, and you're like, interesting. Well, all
uh,
those cards are affecting me in ways that I didn't want them to.
and
Yeah.
that's a sweet little deck builders tip for you guys out there. If you're building to win and not just for fun, which
Hmm.
usually it's like some you're somewhere on that scale.
That is, it's a spectrum, right?
Yeah, that and I know where I land on that. I want to be at both ends simultaneously. I want to I want to build a wacky deck and win all the time with it. But the reality is like if the biggest thing I can tell you is like if your deck is doing the thing that it does and still losing. So if you still lose when you do the thing,
Give up.
if you're that's it. Either you're playing
Hmm.
that deck just for fun at that point, or you can't because no amount of
It's
tweaking is going to get you out of that. Like
mm-mm.
if the tier 1 decks beat you even when you do your thing a reasonable percentage of the time, it's just a bad deck.
Yeah.
And that's
It's
fine.
just
Like I've built so
it's
many bad
okay.
decks in my
Yeah,
but
I've
sometimes
built
the
e
idea seems great on paper and then you like
mhm.
actually play with it. You're like that,
E-
that wasn't as powerful as I really thought it was going to be. But
It seemed really cool. Yeah.
or you're
Yeah,
like,
it's
I'll draw
it's
my whole deck and then I'll get to kill them. And then you're like, wait, there's a Shieldred on the opponent.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
I actually just die.
Oh,
Oh,
interesting. Yeah.
that's why nobody's doing this.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like sometimes you didn't realize. Cool.
Yeah. It just the meta's too aggressive against you and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So,
So basically, what I'm saying is, drawing cards is bad, and paying a lot of money or a lot of mana to draw cards is really bad. So that brings
mhm.
me to my overrated card, which was Maze Mind Tome. I think I nailed this one. Like, stand behind this 100%.
I don't think you're ever going
Um,
to change your mind about this card.
I see some
I
people posting deck lists in our Discord channel that contain a shocking, absolutely shocking 4 copies of this card. You know who you are. And
yeah,
wow.
I
Wow.
played that deck and I played Maze Mind Tome. I did lose a lot, but I think it's also just because I can't play decks like that very well. So, but
It's
that's
because of the Maze Mind Tome, Zach.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the Maze Mind Tomes. That's what it
Every
is.
loss was because of
Um,
that.
Yeah, Jeff's going to be on this hill forever. Every time like reprint Maze Mind Tome, Jeff's going to remind you that he hates it.
It's terrible. It's
Yeah.
like bad Reckoner Bankbuster, which is already bad.
That card got banned. What are you talking about? It's so good.
Hey, I even
Um,
played a healthy amount of that card.
I know you did, so shut up. Same with Shieldred, which you
But
also
I hated it every time. Okay, Shieldred, I might have been wrong about.
yeah, yeah. It's fine. I was wrong about Viseji. All right. Overrated cards. I said Sire of the Seven Deaths. I think I'm totally on with this. Like
Yeah,
this card is crazy in draft, but like this is not your reanimation target. This is you.
no,
It doesn't do anything. Um, it dies to Sunfall, like everything. Like
I
yeah,
hate this card. I had a sealed deck where I had two of these, and I like O3 that sealed run, and I was pissed. And I
you
played
get
this card
two.
wholeheartedly. Yeah, I had two of them, yeah.
That's so gross. How did you
Yeah.
lose?
Well, I either didn't draw it when the game went long, or I had it in my opener when I'm just trying to find lands, and I drew two of them in a row, and I'd be like, oh. You know, and you have that like two
Yeah,
lander, and you're trying to hit that third land, and it's like seven
two
drop,
seven drops.
seven drop. You're just like, well, we're fucked now. Like, not only did we not draw a land, we didn't draw anything we can play in this
I
entire game.
so badly want to see what your pool was and see if I can build a better deck than you did.
Oh, this was one of the. I think this was like I did the pre-release, and then when it came out on Arena, I did this.
Oh,
So
sure, sure, sure.
I should hope that you could build a better pool than whatever the
Oh,
garbage
just
that
because
I probably
well,
built
you
was.
have so much time
Yeah.
to build. But I just maybe I don't play a sealed deck on Arena often. Besides, like every once in a while, Arena opens, but I don't often just like jump into them. But I do kind of want to get in the habit of just like, all right, I'm going to join the sealed deck. I'm going to save the deck, or at least the pool, and then post it and be like, hey, what would
Yeah,
you
we
build from the
we
deck?
should do that in the Discord channel and just see
That could
because
be a lot
everyone's
of
going to
fun.
come up with different things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be pretty interesting. The biggest thing for me is that it's really hard for me to wait for people to respond. Like if I'm
Oh,
trying to actually get information and be like, "Hey, could you tell me how you would build this so I can help build my deck?" I will just build. I would just play the games, and I'll already have O3 by the time that they get back to me and say, "Oh, you should not be playing any of the colors you're playing." Um,
yeah.
but I do think that would be fun if you just post like sealed pools and be like, "What would you build?"
Yeah, because everyone has their biases. Like I think it's more just an interesting exercise where it's like, yeah,
For
what
sure.
do people come up with? Nobody's gonna build the same deck, right?
It's true. We would
So
you would hope so. They would probably be a pretty bad pool or format if you did that.
yeah, well, but people talk about it as though that's the case, that there is a correct build or like
It's
the
true.
right deck. I don't think
Hmm.
that's true, right? Like a way of speaking about things to simplify it, but like everyone plays different, has different biases. You know what you're good at and what cards you like, and like there's no like this is the right deck out of this pool.
Hmm.
And so what's going to happen is you're going to post this pool, everyone's going to build a different deck, and you're never going to get the answer about whose deck would have performed the best.
It's true.
So it's
It's
just
true.
kind of for fun.
It is for fun. Uh, hey, if you have a sealed pool that you open, post it on the Discord in the limited
Yeah.
section. Anyway, all right, we're finishing this out. We have underrated cards. I said all the different lords from the set were kind of. I picked many, many cards.
So did I.
So I was specifically picking just like I think it's great. There's like a pirate lord, we have a cat lord, we have like elf lords, goblin lords,
Flying
zombie,
Lord.
skeleton lords, flying lords. Like there's just a ton of lords. Those are always fun to play around with. And I just felt like I didn't see a lot of people talking about it, but I think it's really healthy for specifically like I don't think this is underrated in the sense that hey, these are going to be really competitive decks. You
Yeah.
better watch out for this deck or whatever. I'm talking about this was really good for them to add to Foundation specifically, and This is for the player who is battling against the lifelink deck. That's like, man, I want to do these things, but I wish that Pirates was just a little bit better. I loved Ixalan. Bam, Pirate Lord. There you go.
Yeah.
That'll help you. Like that. And it's not just like, oh, here's a metallic mimic. It can be whatever Lord you want it to be. Like, that's kind of lame. And I don't know. Those are never really
Yeah.
fun.
I appreciated when they did that as like ooh,
It
now
helps.
it helps out a lot of these decks that need the help. But it just
Hmm.
doesn't you don't play pirates
Hmm.
so that you can have like this generic robot
Like the
that
best card in your
pumps
deck
your
is a
pirates. Like,
robot. Yeah. Like,
yeah, it's lame, right? It
yeah.
doesn't give you that feeling of playing these kindred decks. And I'm with you on this, and I think it's super important, not only because that's like, lords have been a huge part of Magic's history all the way back
Hmm.
to Alpha. Like, this is some old school stuff. Um, Also, the fact that this set is around for 5 years means like these lords could become relevant like at any point when they're just like, oh,
Hmm.
we'll print a couple good pirates in this
Hmm.
whatever set 2 years from now. They don't have to print a lord to make it relevant. Then
Yeah.
they just have these lords sitting in the base set. And I think that's
Yeah.
really smart.
And these also become the de facto best lords that you think about. Like, no, we didn't get Lord of Atlantis and things like that. And there isn't specifically Elvish Champion and Goblin King, but there are other cards that will fit those molds that will now be those versions for the new players
Right.
too.
Those cards don't really line up with current design philosophy. So,
Yeah, unblockable creatures en masse is not what uh, WotC is interested in printing.
right.
All
Yeah.
of those cards gave your creatures land walk, so
Yeah.
it's
Landwalk's just not
and
really a thing anymore.
it's not. It's like forest walk, mountain walk. Just like, oh, you're playing mountains. Fuck you. You can't block any of my creatures. Like
Yeah.
that's just it. Uh, yes, it's attacking and blocking is the best part about Magic. Don't make
Yeah.
it not matter.
Yeah. It's also why,
Like,
Shadow's a weird mechanic. It's like a
mhm.
secondary attack and blocking lane or whatever. But um,
Though to be fair, I loved Shadow because it's very aggressive.
yeah.
It's like, oh, this
uh,
creature can't block. I don't care. You can't block either. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just attacking. It doesn't matter.
But, um, yeah. So you picked a bunch of cards. Loved that pick, and I think it's even if it doesn't materialize now, the fact that it could materialize at any point is like
Hmm.
really valuable. And
Yeah.
this is the right place to do it. I'm glad they recognized that and like front loaded it. I picked temples for like a similar but lamer reason, which is just like these are fine, and you'll often want one or maybe two of these, and obviously they're not going to be that good when you have Scrylands in the same
Hmm.
format, but like
You mean
down the
Surveil
road,
lands?
or yes, these are the Scrylands. The
Yeah, yeah.
Surveil lands are also there, which are strictly better. Like, sure, but those aren't around forever, and to just have these as a baseline, I think is a really reasonable 5 year baseline,
Hmm.
like dual land pick.
Yeah.
So
They're also like 50 cents. So, and we don't often talk about
yeah,
MTG finance, but these lands have been reprinted so many times that like them actually being usable in standard is great for players. So,
totally.
happy,
And like,
happy with that.
yeah, the Surveil lands are strictly better, but it's not
Hmm.
like it's not such a big difference that if I, I'm looking online, I take a deck list and I swap all the surveil lands for temples, that I
Yeah,
can't, like, the deck doesn't function anymore.
yeah,
That's just not the case. Whereas with some old stuff like shock lands and stuff, there's just nothing that can replace that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's totally fine.
exactly. No, I think that's a great call out. We have a few more cards to talk about. Jeff, do you have some favorite cards from Limited Standard, Explorer, and maybe some art cards you're looking at?
I do. Okay, so we're starting with limited.
Yes.
So my favorite card in Limited, and I think I sort of hinted at this earlier about not being surprised about the white results. My favorite card is Dazzling Angel in this limited
Hmm.
format. That was the one that was just like I keep looking back. I'm like a 2/3 flyer with like a super relevant ability for three in limited in core set limited. How did I miss this one? The law of the 2/3s. Come on. Um, but yeah, just I always love this card. This is for somehow become the common that I want to see. I don't think it's the
Hmm.
best common in the set. It's like the best white common, but some of the other colors have stronger commons. But this is the one I want to see because this is like
Hmm.
the direction. It either lets you go life gain or like flyers, and it's just really cool. So this was the one that's like I feel like I missed it, but now I'm looking back, I'm like, of course this is the best white common. And
Hmm.
so it has angels sub theme, like it just has a lot going on. So
It
uh,
does, youthful Valkyrie ends up being really important a lot of times. Um,
right.
I think that's a great pick. Funny that you're like picking more of a card I would normally pick. I'm not picking a card that you would normally pick, but
Oh, I thought that's why you're going with that, but
I know. I know it sounded like I was doing that, but I'm really not. Um,
cool.
I think that my favorite limited card is so bizarre, but I feel like I have to just stick with what actually feels right because this card, I know a lot of people, like other people, would never take this card, and I would often see it and be like, "Ooh, well, I could play this card maybe," and I would take it, and I put it in a lot of decks. I don't think I should put it in, but I
Mm,
did. And I still put it in decks and I still like it, even though I know it's not really good. And that's why I know
okay.
it must be one of my favorite cards. And that is Time Stop. I four blue for an instant, end the turn. That's it. It's like a six
It's
mana
your
counter
favorite
spell.
limited card?
Yeah, I literally played this card so much because people don't like it, they pass it a lot, and you see it often. And I picked
Well,
it
yeah.
way more times than I should. And I played it like this is so not a Zach card. Do you know what I mean? Like it's so it doesn't do anything. It's not aggressive. It just like fogs your opponent for 6 mana essentially. But like it's bad.
I I never would have predicted that you would pick this one.
The amount of times I'm drafting and then I'm like, ooh, but time stop. I'm just gonna see, and I'll take time stop, and I'm like, how did I end up taking just all blue cards? Maybe because I had a time stop and wanted to play time stop, and like
Just
I don't,
that's your signal to force blue. You
yeah, and like
saw a time
almost,
stop.
yeah, almost every single time I play this card, it's just like 6 mana counterspell. Like
I
that's
was gonna
what
say,
it
like you
does.
don't do well in the draft. That's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
6 mana counterspell, your opponent doesn't get to attack this turn. That tends to be what I use it for. Um, and in a pinch, it's 6 mana counters something that they tried to kill my creature and stop my combat with all my creatures tapped. Like that has happened as well. So like I'm not saying this, and that's the reason why I'm picking it as my favorite because I don't think it's good. I don't want to tell other people to take it. You shouldn't take
You
it.
shouldn't take
But
it. Yeah.
there's something about the art. It came out in like when I was a kid,
The
and
art is yeah, the art is like calls back to
like
that old
this is
school.
from
Yeah.
Kamigawa, right? Like
Yeah.
I just really like this card, and it scratches all the itches, and I don't know why, but I take it. I don't even know how many decks I have played with this card in it, but like I don't think I should have played it in any of those, but I
I,
still like it.
I haven't seen any of those decks, but I think you're probably right.
You haven't seen them because they haven't trophied. I only post the trophy decks.
Yeah.
God, that's so funny. Well, to make things better, we are snake drafting, so I will come back to like a card that like actually makes a bit more sense. Um, this is a card that is my favorite for standard, and this one feels much more like a card that I would love to play, and that's Bolt Wave. Man, this card rocks. 1 mana sorcery, deal 3 damage. Love it. Each opponent is dealt 3 damage. It doesn't deal 3 damage to anything.
Yeah. Man, it's like what lightning bolt got
No, it's
reprinted.
sorcery speed lightning bolt.
Yeah.
Um, No, but
This is what, Lava Spike or
it's lava spike, yeah. But it hits
yeah,
each opponent, so it's commander.
sure, yeah, Commander Lava Spike. Sh- Yeah, guess not much more to say on that one. It does
There
three
isn't.
damage to your
It does three
opponent.
damage to your opponent, and when you play four of them in your deck, it almost kills them.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Cool, yeah. Mine was also mine was
Lo-
also
Time stop.
a no. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it. No, mine was a no-brainer. I think I probably could have told you this would have been my pick
Hmm.
even before it happened, but I've played nonstop. The only every standard deck I've played since this set came out has contained this card, and that is Vengeful Blood Witch.
Oh, so good.
And I this harkens back to my no longer playing Immersturm Predator. Um,
Ah, got it. Okay.
which is that I am on a super old school classic aristocrats list at the moment. So, for those who
Oh.
don't know, the recent trend in recent years has been that like red black is the sacrifice deck, and it's kind of gone through different phases from steal your creature and sack it through to like I sack weird things. Like I don't sack creatures necessarily. I sack artifacts and I sack,
Mhm.
like the whole anvil phase, and then it braids is like sack enchantment tokens.
Mhm.
That's kind of like where people took it. But the original old school like sacrifice decks were black white, and they just had a bunch of creatures that like died into other creatures, and then things that whenever a creature dies, it drains your opponent. And it was a little more like creature combo-y than the current versions tend to be.
Mhm.
And this basically what I've been playing in standard is an homage to that classic deck because we finally have like all the pieces we need there. And so, big one is Vengeful Blood Witch, which
Yes.
drains your opponent anytime you get a sacrifice. We still have Bartolomé del
Hmm.
Presidio, which is your free sack outlet. But another card that entered the ecosystem recently that is huge here is Enduring Innocence,
Hmm.
which is whenever a creature with power two or less enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and it comes back. So if you sack it, it comes back, and you can
Right.
still
Ooh, okay.
get that enchantment. Um, and then I play basically that with like Forsaken Miner is nice because the Blood Witch targets, which means it commits a crime. So if you sack the
Ooh.
miner, you could just
You
tap
just
all
get to
your
bring it
swamps
back.
to trigger it for however many times, and that drains for
Oh.
however many versions of the Blood Witch effect you have. I currently am playing Funeral Room as like a couple of copies of that as extra. Funeral Room is like whenever creature you control dies, each opponent loses one
Hmm.
life, you gain one life. It's like shitty Blood Witch because it actually doesn't target,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, but yeah, it's a very simple list. It plays Infestation Sage, Corrupted Conviction. The other thing I like about the miner is you can do it on your opponent's turn and trigger Enduring Innocence on your opponent's turn to draw the card.
Oh.
And so it has a lot of fun little play. It definitely like I don't think the list I have currently I don't think I've worked it to tier two yet, but I
Hmm.
think you could. I think there's enough
Yeah.
going on here that it could get there. It just has that classic problem of aristocrats decks, which is like sometimes I just draw like a couple infestation sages and a forsaken miner, and I'm like,
You're like,
there's no way I'm winning this game. Like
yeah, it's
my
like,
opponent's
damn.
gonna play cards that don't suck ass on their
Suck.
own. Like,
Even in limited, this is not doing what I needed to do.
yeah, like a couple of 1/1s and a two
It's
two
like,
that might come back later.
he's like, "Ooh,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, it's generally you can get some stuff going, and the free sack out, like it really feels like that old school deck where it's like they gave us a free sack outlet and like a blood artist and a bun
Right.
and like enduring innocence. Like sometimes you just pop off with one or two enduring innocences, and all your cards are so cheap that it
Yeah.
feels like you're playing a different game. Originally, I had there's like a sorcery in this set that returns all cheap creatures.
Raise the past.
raise the yeah, but I felt like it was just win more. Like anytime it was good, I didn't really need it. So I eventually cut it, but I was playing a couple of copies of that as well. I
Oh,
cut it. I cut it for the lamest thing too, Ruthless Lawbringer, which is like
oh.
the 3/2 that when it enters, you sack a creature and destroy an online permanent. I'm like,
I
this is
mean,
just
that's
better.
like,
It's just so much better.
yeah, it's like I see that it is kind of lame, but
It's boring relative to the
yeah.
like, yeah, but it just ends up being a little bit better, I think. Um, yeah, like this deck never run, it doesn't run out of gas easily because you have four Corrupted Conviction, four Enduring Innocence. I'm playing Resolute Reinforcements because I really
Hmm.
like two bodies that I could play at instant speed to trigger Innocence on my off turn as well.
That sounds nice.
Um, yeah, it's a lot. It's really fun. Sometimes it just does the thing where it just doesn't get there, and like
Hmm.
sometimes your fucking blood witches are nowhere. You go through 40 fucking cards and you're like, where's the goddamn blood witch? But that happens because your deck does kind of rely on this one card.
It's
Um, but it's hard to do 20 damage without the blood witch. Let's put it that way. But
got it.
yeah, it's super fun, and when you go off, it feels like what is everyone else doing? Because I'm just like, you know, like I tap swamp to drain you for three. I'll just do
Hmm.
that like four times. See you later.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow. That sounds like so much fun. I think I need a new standard deck, so I will be
yeah, you
asking you
should.
for that list. I'm gonna steal the crap out of it.
Yeah, I'll post it in the
That sounds
Discord
great.
if
Yeah,
I remember.
I will remind you because I want to do that. Uh, I want to go to there. That's sweet. How fun. Ugh. That
And
makes me feel like Magic is trying to come back to like, hey, here's a free psych outlet, here's a blood artist. You can play this deck whenever you want.
but
You have it, I guess, for as long as Ixalan is in uh, standard, but
but that's why I think this set was such a huge success because this
mhm,
is an example of me being like, hey, at one point, sort of, let's say, medium, like half
mhm,
of Magic's lifetime ago, there was a deck called the Aristocrats that kind of took the game over by storm. And I thought it was really cool in particular. And like that had a big impact on me. And now I get to play that in standard because they gave me the card
mhm.
that deck that you need to make that
Yeah, yeah.
deck. And I'm sure other people are experiencing a similar thing with whatever deck from
They
their
are excited
past
about it. Yeah.
they that excited them, right? Whether it's that life gain deck or it's something else, right? And that's kind of what we were talking about off the cuff of like they did a good job of just giving everyone
Hmm.
something. And this is not a tier one deck. It's not going to beat the Demir decks, more than half the time. But I think I can work this up to be like a not embarrassing deck to bring to the
Hmm.
table. Uh, and that's a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if the culmination of like Universes Beyond is letting us play decks that have been kind of they've been trying to keep us from playing for years. Be like,
Right.
it's a little bit too powerful. Let's just play a like kitty version, like a porcelain doll version. Like it's kind of like it's aristocrats but at home kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, they've
it,
definitely
it
done that with
yeah,
aristocrats, right?
it's
You never
aristocrats but
you have to
only
pay a ton of mana to sack stuff.
yeah, or it's like oh aristocrats but only once a turn or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Um, it's like you don't really get to play the deck that it doesn't feel this like the same game, right? If they're like, hey, you know what, whatever, play Magic and also here's some Final Fantasy cards. You'll be like,
Yeah.
I could play the decks I really liked, actually. Thank you for giving me this treat. Um, so if that's what happens with that, I like that. It's nice. Thank you for Wizards for this nice gift. Foundations has been a treat. Um, really
Yeah,
liked it a lot. We just have
me
two
too.
more things to kind of talk about. However, Jeff, do you have a favorite Explorer card? You're very
Yeah,
excited for.
so uh no.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that my favorite Explorer card was not from this set. It was from Pioneer Masters, and that's Slippery Buckle. I mean, Gladecover Scout.
Yeah.
Um, but that was the card I've been waiting for years, and this is kind of the only time I get to either talk about that or I don't really need to, but I've been wanting Boggles to come to Explorer. That's the deck I've waited for a long time, and
Yeah.
it's here now, and so I'm very happy. And when I go to Explorer, I'll probably continue to pick up Boggles and try to play it and probably not win, but it's the deck that I'm like, I almost got there. Almost got there. I can keep playing just for fun, but I
Yeah.
don't always think that it's going
Was
to be strong enough.
Maelstrom Pulse already an Explorer? I don't even remember. Uh, I don't know
I
if
don't
that's a new
remember
Pioneer edition or not. If it's new, then Maelstrom Pulse. Otherwise, no. This set won't have any impact on my Explorer play at all.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's
Um,
a core set, right? Like
it's true,
it's
and
not
that was
really aimed at that power level.
it's true, and that was really the hardest part of it in general.
Hmm.
Is just trying to figure out that stuff. Uh, Favorite art from the set, Jeff? I'm gonna go first because it's a card
Okay.
we already talked
Okay.
about. I realized it while we were going, but Time Stop has got to be it.
Yeah.
I
Time
it
stops.
it basically forced me to play this card in draft so many
The
times,
the art was just
but
that good.
it's such a classic, like almost symmetrical thing. It's a very blue card. There's so many blue cards that look like this, but it feels so classic. The duality of everything with the chicken and the bird, and I don't know. I don't necessarily know if that represents the stopping of a turn, but
Yeah.
it
Magic
it
used to do that where the art was just like pretty good art that's, I don't know, maybe very, very loosely on theme.
yeah, it
But
doesn't
it
really make sense. Um,
necessarily depict what the card was supposed to be.
I guess there's some gears in the background. They're in a clock or something, but
Yeah.
I just like this art so much for like kind of like sentimental reasons. Like I've just seen
Totally.
this for so many years that like this feels
Yeah.
like magic to me and is one of the reasons why I liked this set. So
Yeah.
even though I will, once again, don't put this in your draft deck. Um,
That's a
Only
good
I can do
choice.
that.
Um I have a few things. They're kind of similar themed. I ended up, I think I'll go with Krenko just because there's been
Mm.
several Krenko arts, and this one's kind of
Hmm.
my favorite with his like, for some reason, the fact that he just has that big old foot like about to step through the doorway is
Yeah.
just, I don't know. This piece has like the attitude that I feel like Krenko deserves, and Krenko's had a few
Hmm.
takes at the art in the past, and I'm always like, I don't know. Why is it like a zoom in on his weird, ugly goblin face and not showing him as a mob boss? Like
Yeah, totally.
I feel like this one it comes across as like, okay, this dude's like a mob boss, and
Hmm.
there's a bunch of goblins behind him just waiting for him to go through first, and he's like, that big
Just
old step, just like confidently cruising through there. I was like, this art I finally buy for Cranko. It's always been like,
mhm.
I don't see how this is sort of what you're saying. Like, I don't know if this necessarily describes the card. I'm like, that's how I've always felt about Cranko art. I'm like, how is this Cranko?
Yeah.
And this one feels like it is.
He feels very active, definitely.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't seem to be the biggest of all the goblins, there are some big goblins right behind him, but
Yeah.
also some teeny tiny ones. He's kind of mid-sized, but
Yeah. Which I
I feel
think
like
adds
he's,
to it too, right? Like he's a mob
of
boss.
course,
He's not just the biggest.
exactly. Um, so yeah, I do love that, and specifically, there's one goblin in the corner who's just like kind of smiling in the window at the bottom, which is so funny to me. as they're
Yeah.
busting into some sort of bar or something. I'm not really sure, but
Is that their headquarters? I don't even know. Like he has to go in first.
he busted the door open. It definitely looks like he broke the lock. So I'm assuming that this is not their place of residence. Though to be fair, they are goblins, so you
Yeah,
never
who
know what their
knows? Maybe
tendencies
he's just
are.
kicking in his own fucking door.
He's just so
That's pretty
stoked that
badass.
he's like, "Fuck yeah, let's just like break this shit. I don't care." Well, awesome, man. Foundations, what a great set. Just
Yeah.
such a
And this is one of those interesting sort of first time happy hours here where like this set's not leaving anytime soon.
no.
Like often, okay, sure, we have a few more years of it in standard or
Mhm.
whatever. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if this set comes back for a draft a few more times before it's
I'm sure.
replaced. So
Yeah, I'm sure it will come back often enough, or maybe there could be like a world that we live in where it's like, hey, Foundations is just like a mainstay draft that you can
oh,
always
I
do
would
for new
I would love
players.
that.
Like that would make sense if it's like, hey, if you're new to draft, you should play Foundations. Um, it's your literal foundations to Magic.
Not just being
Uh,
there farming noobs.
I mean, like that would also that might be a reason why they don't do it
Yeah,
because they're like,
that's probably exactly why they don't do
yeah,
it.
they're like, a bunch of people are just gonna just wreck all the new
We have to make
players,
the rewards like really suck, but then the new players are going to be like, "Why do these rewards suck so
and so they
much?"
won't do it. Yeah, yeah, but I have really loved this format. I'm still drafting it until Aetherdrift comes out, and it's uh, it's just
It's fun. Yeah,
it's fun. It's a fun set, and that's like, can you ask for anything more for Magic besides being fun?
yeah, exactly.
Not really. So
Even if it's too simple for you guys, I really loved it.
yes, that's right. It's not too simple for my simple brain.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jeff, let's go to last call. Let's talk about this beer we've been drinking this evening and give it a rating. As always, we rate our beers on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. But this has nothing to do with what tiers you are in currently, because that would be a mean thing to do. It's just a fun way to rate beers. Everyone's in different tiers at different times. Everybody plays Magic differently. If you play best of three draft, you don't rank up at all, so like tiers don't matter to you. And so, like, yeah, hey, it doesn't really matter. They're just kind of like, yeah,
They
whatever.
exist.
They exist. Anyway, that's all just to say that don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You have to spit them out, you pour them on the ground, and you hate them.
Silver beers are kind of just boring or bad macro brews that are particularly well, you know, made
Made.
or just boring
Hmm.
micro
Uh, g-
brews.
Gold beers are fine, but you don't really think you'll drink them again.
Platinum is solid. You definitely drink it again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. You like these a lot, and you share them with your friends.
And Mythic, these are the best of the best. Been saving this one. These are the vengeful blood witches of the beer world.
Okay.
Best card ever.
All right. I believe it. I believe it.
I wanted to
All
put
right.
it for my favorite limited standard explorer and art, but I felt like that was a little much, so I had to choose which trophy it was going to win.
All right. Well, I like the mythic trophy. Makes for a more interesting episode, I would say. Sweet. Well, Jeff, what do you think about Bickford's Black Lager here?
I I liked it.
That sounds like you didn't like it.
I did like it. I'm
Okay.
trying to decide if I liked it because it's a black lager or because they
Hmm.
made it well. I'm not sure it matters, I guess, that much, but
Hmm.
this was an enjoyable drink.
It
I
was.
think there were a few things I was looking for more from it on,
Hmm.
like uh, it had basically no head at all, like carbonation
Hmm.
level was a little, maybe not quite what I expected, and is a little thin,
Hmm.
maybe
I
Little
think
tougher body on a black or a dark
a
lager
black
would have been
lager.
nice.
Yeah,
Um, but it tasted good.
yeah. I think I was having almost the exact same feelings with it, where I thought that it tasted a little flat in both carbonation and like body, but I think
Yeah.
if there was just a little more carbonation in there, like it had some, but it was playing with the line of how much carbonation do we really have to put in this, is what it kind of felt
Yeah.
like. Which we don't
Right.
often like. We will see from like newer breweries, but we don't often. That's rarely something that we pick up on. Um, and as far as like something I'm upset with a brewery having, the carbonation level is like something I can be more lenient with, especially with this style. But I will say that yes, it was lacking as far as I had hoped that it would have a little bit more carbonation, which I think would help with the feel of the beer on my tongue and make it feel a little, give it a little bit more oomph.
Yeah. That's what it was because it's like this
Hmm.
tastes good, but I just feel like it's missing something. And
And I really think it's the carbonation. I think it
yeah.
needs a little bit more. Um, I'm wondering if you like drink this from the tap there, it might taste different, and that when it's canned, it might. I don't know if it loses some or something, and maybe they have to juice it up a little bit. But I
Yeah.
do think it was missing some carbonation there. So
But it's kind of a
um,
good problem to have if you're going to have a problem, which is like it tasted good. I just kind of wanted more of it. And
that's true. That is true. And hey, it didn't explode, right? So
that's true. Yeah.
we've had
Just,
stouts. Well, we've had dark beers that literally told us to shake the can. So um,
yeah. They're
don't
just
do that.
laughing at us in
Like
in their back
what the hell is
office
this
there.
about? But kind of with all that being said, this is a hard rating to give, I think,
Yeah.
um, because
I kind of feel like gold is too harsh, but platinum might be too generous.
I
You know what I mean?
agree. I agree. Um, ultimately, I think gold is probably where it hits because, like, I'm probably going back to this place just because I know somebody that works there and everything.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm probably not picking up a black lager specifically from there. Like if I'm there, I want to try it at the place. I want them to pour me one,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna be like specifically picking up black lagers from this spot because
For
I want
sure.
black lagers. You know what I mean? And so there
I
might
think
be
I'm with you.
one that I specifically find, but it's not the actual black lager that I'm going to buy for myself all the time. So uh,
Although I will say, like, this has me excited about Bickford because
yeah.
even though this wasn't necessarily to my taste exactly, like the taste
Mhm.
itself was good, and I think it
Yes.
was intentionally made. I
Yes.
just would have liked it.
A
Like
little
just
bit.
tell your friend, like crank that carbonation up and chuck a little more oats in there,
Yeah, yeah.
and
We're
happy
like
as a clam. You're
super,
like
super
we're
close.
so close to that.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I think yes, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm excited to see what the rest that Bickford has to offer, and this one was definitely tasty. So
yeah, but I do think
at
it's a
least there's
gold
that.
for me. I'm probably not
Hmm.
going back to this one
Yeah.
in particular.
Yes, I agree. I agree. All right. Gold, but like the highest gold that you could get, I would say. Um,
Basically, yeah.
which we don't
It's
often
like
see. Many times when we have gold, it's like, yeah, it's pretty gold, maybe silver. Like that happens a lot.
right,
Um,
yeah. Because
but
gold
anyway,
means like I don't want to drink it again, and so like this is like as good as a beer can possibly be. Where I'm still saying like, I probably won't get that again though.
yeah, I think this will be one of those things where it's like I put it on a list of like in a few years once they're more established, I would be like, let me try it again. Let me see.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
I'll revisit this, but not
Yeah.
right now. All right. Well, we are going to closing time. So, as always, you can reach us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram if you have any thoughts or feelings or things you want to talk about.
You can also find us on Arena itself under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
That's right. I've been drafting a lot on that account actually, so you might be playing
I've
against me.
seen some activity on that. And I was like, what's going
Hmm.
on over there?
Yeah, I'm getting us some gems. I was thinking, hey, maybe if I draft a lot of foundations, we'll have a good amount of foundations cards.
Oh, a
So
good
yeah.
foundation. Smart.
Yeah, it's just not just a hat rack. If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg. That's Zeulberg on Twitter and Instagram. I'm also on Blue Sky as regular Zach, and I stream on Twitch also as regular_Zach. But Jeff, where can they find you?
The best place is our Discord channel. Link is down in the show notes, where, hey, you might see some sealed pools coming up. We could have a Discord
Ooh.
channel sealed build off with Aetherdrift.
Ooh, I like that a lot, and I'm definitely going to be thinking about that, and will be pushing to get some. I'll post some sealed pools. We'll do a little bit of a
We
fun
should
thing.
think
I
through
don't
the
know.
best way to like share your build because it's a little awkward.
On
Uh,
Arena, yeah, I think you could use. There are some things we can do. We're gonna figure
yeah.
that out, but that sounds like a lot of fun to me. I don't know. I'll be traveling around the time that Aetherdrift comes out, so maybe that'll be a fun thing to be able to do on airplanes and cars and things like that. So
Yeah. Nice.
just build and seal decks. Oh, so fun. Anyway, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there as well. Anywhere that you could post something saying, "Hey, Arena Regulars is great, 5 stars." We'd love that. Please only leave us a review if you like the podcast. If you don't like the podcast, don't bother. You're also probably not listening anymore because
Yeah.
this is
Why are
the
you
end of
still
the
listening?
episode. Wow, you think that you don't like us, but I think you actually do like us. So actually, no, maybe you should leave a
And
leave us.
yeah, go leave a review.
Yeah, do it. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that I picked pretty much the first or best common in almost every color, and Zach picked some cards.
All right, that was rude, but whatever. All right, good night. All right, that's fine.